Hello, my name is Jack Blade and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. We are doing a tips and tricks video in Satisfactory today, and we'll specifically go through 50 tips for new players and some advanced players that just haven't seen specific things, that is prepping for 1.0 that will make your game really easy, fun, and dynamic in a way you might not have been able to do before. So with that said, we will also, I made a nice community post. I have hit 300 subs, and I am so happy and I'm so glad and blown away by the support that I've been getting by the community on YouTube. And I'm so much looking forward to seeing what happens in the future. And we will 100% aim for hitting the 500 subs before September 10. And hopefully this video is a great motivator for people to start subscribing and follow me on YouTube. So if you have any comments, any tips that I might have missed or anything, make sure to leave those in the comments below. But for now, let's get into it. 50 tips for you as a player in Satisfactory. Alright, tip number 1, Ficsit.app. The Satisfactory Mod Manager is a great way for you to change or improve or fix things you aren't necessarily happy with the game about, or like whatever it is. So this is a great way of doing that. You go to the Ficsit.app website, and then in the top right corner I have Open Mod Manager. If you don't have it yet, it's going to say Install Mod Manager or Download Mod Manager. And then you get this, which is the prompt where you actually install from. And like right now, you can see this is my list for the content creator mods. I have the list, the profile here, but I can also then go to compatible and see all compatible mods with the current version. Just make sure that the game is turned off before you try to install it. And if you want to just have them saved for the future reference, you can favorite and just go into the show favorite mods, and I have 69. Nice. So then let's move into tip number 2, is actually the eyedropper that is in the game. If you feel like, okay, it's such a hassle going in here and constantly having to pick whatever item you want to build, what you can do is easily just aim at what you want to build and middle mouse click. So click on the mouse wheel and you get to pick whatever you're aiming at. And you don't have to enter any menu, which makes it easy. So what you can do, if you have a specific build palette or anything like that, what you can do is just line up and have all of your, let's say that I know that I'm going to be using the road barriers, I'm going to be using the industrial railings, I know I'm going to be using these foundations. Then what I do is I place those next to each other, so that I don't have to bother with opening menus or anything like that. I can literally just look at it and just go oh no, I need this, boop, and I can turn around and keep building. So that's a good way of applying the eyedropper. That makes it a lot easier and a lot more comfortable to pick what you're going to build. I can't pick that, but I can have bombs. Tip number 3 is the aligning to world grid with the foundation by holding control. And when you do this, you can see that I snap to some invisible grid that is all over the world. And you can do this with the 2-meter foundations and the 4-meter foundations. You can, it looks like it's snapping, but in reality, if you go to the next one, you will see that there is a slight space or a slight overlap between them, and that is not meant to be there. The 1-meter foundations are not actually they don't work with snapping to world grid the way they should, and I don't know when or if that is even going to be fixed. However, if you use the 2-meter foundation first, so if I just use the eyedropper here and I align that, then I can switch to the 1-meter and I can place that, and then I can work from there, and this is now aligned to the world grid. So let's move on. Tip number 4 is curves. So if you're bored of the straight like lines like this, what you can do is use catwalks. In the architecture menu, if you've unlocked them in the Awesome Shop, you have catwalk crossings that you can place. And if you have one out like this, you can then hold Control and turn them one step, place two, and then continue going like this, and you will soon have your perfect curve that you can place foundations on. Now, if you place them like this, they're going to snap to there, but if you place them on the catwalk like this, let's go there, you can see now that what I get is a very easy to control curvature to my foundations that you can apply anywhere. Okay, let's move on. Tip number 5. When dismantling, if you hold Control, instead of dismantling one, you can select multiple items to dismiss or dismantle. Perfect. Tip number 6. Dismantle or painting filter by pressing G while aiming at an item. So if I want to remove a bunch of these pillars, I press G, you can see the dismantle filter is on, and if I hold Control, I go like this, it only selects the pillars, like so. The same thing goes for when I'm painting. If I grab this, if I only want to paint these, I press G, and then I can go like this, and it will only paint these. It will not touch anything else. Alright? So, easy way of filtering so you don't accidentally remove stuff you don't want to, and if you want to turn off the filter, you just aim at the thing you filtered and press G again. Or out in the air. If you have a filter on, you can just aim up into the sky, press G, and you clear the filter. Tip number 7. You can see how the snapping works right now. If I want to have control over my snapping, I hold Control and it will use smaller snapping points and allow me to rotate as long as I am aiming at a different foundation. If I'm trying this out here, it won't work. It will only align to the world grid. But in here, it will let me place things at an awkward, like offset. I can then place and I can rotate weirdly and have a little bit more control over where I place foundations. So a great way of manipulating your foundation placing. Tip number 8, you don't need to remove machines for upgrade. If you add a miner to a node, for example, you don't need to remove it, you don't need to dismantle it to upgrade it. What you can do is just grab the miner Mark II and then click, and it goes to become a miner Mark II, or if you want miner Mark III, and you can also downgrade the same way. So you can go back to the Mark I. So the same thing goes for belts, the same, like there's a lot of them that just automatically when you aim at them upgrade. You can check that by just aiming with the like it has to be an actual upgrade, like a Mark upgrade. Otherwise you might need to like press Control or something like that. So it works with these power poles, belts, lifts, stuff like that. Tip number 9. Looking at these sticks can tell you the status of a machine. So these are good indicators. If they're red, it means they have either no power or they have no recipe assigned to them. To just fix that, plug them to power and make sure they have a recipe. If they're yellow, it means that they are not efficient or idle. If they have less than 75% efficiency, I think they will run as like they will be yellow, or if they have or idling entirely, they will be yellow. If they have power and just can't run. And then we have the white or bluish sticks, which means that they are overclocked and running. And then you have, if they are not overclocked and just running at over 75% efficiency, you can see that it has a green stick. Tip number 10. There are 4 ways of upgrading and progressing in the system or in the game to get to further points in the game or to increase your ability to diversify your gameplay. The first one is the space elevator phase, which is sending in space elevator parts into your Space elevator unlocking new tiers in your hub. Hub being the second one. The hub has its own upgrade system in here, which unlocks the actual game progress here, where you can have your own levels of like all the machines, all the production, which materials are usable that's in the world, starting with like iron and copper and limestone, then developing all the way up to like nuclear power and like all that stuff. And then you have the awesome shop, which unlocks customization options and some logistics option. So you have some signs, you have lights and lamps, you have like management in terms of like floor holes, you have hypertube sections, pipes, wall outlets, and that's just single outlets and double-sided outlets. Like there's a lot of stuff in here. And then you have the like the way that you'd use this is by getting tickets. These tickets you get by syncing items in an awesome sync, and all of this is found in the special menu, and you unlock them in the hub. And then you have the MAM, this one, Molecular Analysis Machine, which allows you to analyze different things you find in the world and then get access to new recipes like fabric here. You get access to medicinal inhalers, you get access to parachutes and stuff like that, and everything. And the aside from this, like, which is super important, it's really important that you do this because there's a lot of very functional things in there. And the most important part in here is tip number 11 is that you have hard drives scattered around the world that you can scan. It takes 10 minutes per hard drive, and when you have scanned them, you get alternative recipes you can pick from. So when you start the game, you only have a base recipe available. Most of the time when you unlock something in the hub, you only have the base recipe available, but by finding the hard drives and analyzing them in the MAM, you get access to alternative recipes. So in this case, I could skip the, like I can make them out of just iron ingots instead of having to make them from iron rods, or I can make screws from steel beams instead of having to make them from iron at all. And all of these have different functions in terms of like, okay, I need things to be done really fast, or I want it to be a lot more resource efficient, or I want to be able to use less machines so that I take less space and therefore use less power. There's a lot of different like use cases that are very situational, but it is probably one of the most powerful things in the game, for especially for making the end game really like manageable in terms of like resource costs and the factory sizes and like for managing lag. So let's move on. Tip number 12. This is for mobility. When you are running, if you're just running, you have a certain speed, right? But if you run and then crouch at the same time, you slide. And here's the big thing. If you run like this, slide and jump, you increase your speed significantly. However, as you could see here, once I hit an upwards facing slope, I can go like this, I can slide, but I can't slide here, which like up this hill, which means I stop. I can slide here, I can slide down, that's no problem, but the second I try to go up, I stop and I just crouch normally. Okay, tip number 13. We're talking about different ways of being mobile. So, by having the blade runners on, if I take them off, I can see I'm running a lot slower, I slide a lot slower, I jump not nearly as far or as high, but if I put them on, I have a lot more mobility, and that is a very important tool, especially in the beginning. On top of that, you unlock the blade runners here in the quartz tree. Then on top of that, you have the zip line, which is a tool that allows you to zip along power lines, and that is unlocked in the Caterium tree over here. And then if you want to jump off very tall things constantly before you have the jetpack unlocked, you want to get the parachute, which you find out here in the mycelia tree. That's the very, very easy to get mobility, like very early on in the game, because all of them are locked in the MAM. None of them are locked behind space elevator faces or the hub. It's literally just find the right items, put in here, and you are good to go. Tip number 14. When you take fall damage from a very high altitude, you never die when you land, if you have full health. You always stop at half a bar of health. Tip number 15. You unlock overclocking in the MAM, in the power slugs section, where the blue slugs, the yellow slugs, and the purple slugs then unlock your ability to overclock machines. The blue slugs you can turn into 1 power shard for overclocking, the yellow slugs you turn into 2, and the purple you turn into 5 power shards. They are scattered around the map, pretty easy to find, especially if you have an object finder where you just set it to power slugs and it will show you the direction you need to find them. Tip number 16. The benefits versus overclocking or underclocking machines is when you underclock, you save a lot of power. When you overclock, you increase speed and you save space because you need less machines. Tip number 17. When you are placing items, certain items can change build mode. You can see that in the middle of the screen, and if you press R, you can change between them, or if you hold R, you can get a radial menu where you can choose which one you want to use. Tip number 18. When you're dealing with pipes, if you're having troubles placing them in weird angles, by changing build mode to the noodle, you often solve that problem and you're able to place your pipes. Tip number 19. In the game, there are 5 marks or 5 levels of belt, and they can move 60 at Mark 1, 120 at Mark 2, 270 at Mark 3, 480 at Mark 4, and 780 at Mark 5. Tip number 20. In the game, there are 2 ways of making 90-degree turn. Number 1 is by going out to where you want to turn to be, and then rotating your mouse wheel and rotating the belt connection, you get your 90-degree bend. Or if you have this situation where you have a belt coming in like so, and you don't really know where it's supposed to be, and like you want this to happen, like a perfect bend, actual bend, then you go from where the center of this belt is, and then go 1, 2. This belt is now going the wrong direction, so let's go like this. It will then snap to, and you will have a perfect 90-degree bend. So those are the 2 ways. Tip number 21. When placing a conveyor lift, the increments that it moves is 1 meter. But the conveyor, like stacking here, each level here is 2 meters, with the floor being the lowest, and you go up 2, then you hit that level, and then up 2, and you hit the next level, up 2, and you hit the next level, and so on and so forth. So 1 meter increments is what the lift moves in, 2 meter increments is what the stackable conveyor pole is. Tip number 22. When you're placing a conveyor lift, there's a limit to how high you can place it. That limit, however, does not apply when you take the lift and you aim it at a conveyor lift hole, like so. Then you can place an infinite length of conveyor lift. Tip number 23. Programmable splitters versus smart splitters. The programmable splitters are great when you are filtering out a specific item or want any specific behavior out of these you can pick from. Programmable splitters are great when you need to filter out multiple items from a single belt into a new line. Tip number 24. Any versus any undefined. In this filter, you can pick either any or any undefined. Any means literally any item, and any undefined means any that hasn't been defined in any of these other lines. Tip number 25. Liquid head lift from pumps and from water towers are reset when they hit machines, when they hit pumps, that are turned off, and they turn off, or it resets when you hit a valve. I'm taking a little bit of a break here in the middle and just reminding people, if you enjoy this content, if you enjoy what I'm presenting, these tips on any of my other videos, and you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the button down below, and we're gonna hit those 500 before September 10. That is my goal, and I really hope that you guys are on board for it, because that's also when I want to stream, and your support gets me there. So really, like, subscribe, comment, do all the good stuff. And if you find anything in the first 25 tips that you're like, okay, what does this mean? Ask in the comments. I will do my best to help out, and so will other people. And we will just make sure that there's as much value as possible for this video in the video itself and in the comment section. Now, let's continue with tips and tricks. And tips number 26 is making diagonals with the help of road barriers. Here you can see I've placed 2 road barriers on each side, and if you connect them up with in the middle with a foundation like this, and you Zoop, you can go one out here, and then don't go all the way. Start from the other side and place a final foundation like so. Fill it in, and what you will have is a perfectly flush diagonal with no overlapping corners or anything. Perfect. Tip number 27. Take the time to sort out your spaghetti conveyors. Make sure that they don't overlap and clip into each other. Make sure that they are clearly marked and easy to follow in your system, so that when you go back to it 200 hours later, you still know where to find all the stuff. Tip number 28. To help with sorting out your spaghetti, something you can do is make sure to have your endpoint plan for a factory before you start, so that you know how much you want to produce and of what. That is what the reference is there for, and it will really help you. When it gets a little bit more complicated, however, tip number 29, Satisfactory Calculator. You need to use it. That is what you do when you're building something a little more complicated, and it's not just like, I can fix this on a calculator. You can place in whatever you want here, and it will help you figure it out. If you want to make 50 fused modular frames, it will just help you figure out exactly what you need to build exactly those resources. And it's a really good thing that I already have a video explaining how to use it. So head on over and watch that after this video if you are really interested in how Satisfactory Calculator works. Also, this will be linked together with Ficsit.app in the comments or in the description. Tip number 30. When you are building a factory that has a lot of liquids in it, make sure that everything that deals with the liquids is built from the top down, because liquids travel easier if you make them travel down. Tip number 31. By engaging your dismantle tool, you can see exactly what is stored in a container. By looking at the container with the dismantle tool, it will display what you will get when you dismantle it, which includes its contents. Tip number 32. The short key for engaging your customizer or open the customizer is X. By pressing X, you can open it and you can pick exactly what colors you want to use and apply them the same way that Q is the short key for the build menu. Tip number 33. If you hold Control, you can align machines to each other, making it a lot easier to place them in a single neat line. Tip number 34. To change between different types of foundations, for example, different machines or buildings, technically the subcategory of the menu, you can press E to switch between them, or hold E to get a radial menu that shows you exactly everything in that subcategory that you can pick from. Tip number 35. While holding E with foundations, walls, and some other items, you can press right click or left click to switch between the materials that you have unlocked. Tip number 36. If you want to take a sweet screenshot, you can enter photo mode by pressing P and then removing your UI by pressing middle mouse button. And you can scroll in and out for a cheeky little zoom that can let you find stuff a little bit further away. Tip number 37. Manifolds like this is a lot faster to build, but they take a lot longer to start up. When you're looking at load balancers or load priority systems, then it takes longer to build but it's a lot faster for you to actually get all of your machines working efficiently. Tip number 38. When using trucks, trains, and drones, having item buffers or fluid buffers before and after its input and output enhances the stability and efficiency of it. And that's why it's super important to always have some level of buffer. Tip number 39. It is possible to build two-way trains that can go both directions by placing trains and locomotives that are facing both directions. Similarly, you can flip the last train back so that it's facing the normal direction to give extra support to really long trains going up steep hills. Tip number 40. The reason why you can't make a normal connection like this is unknown for a 90-degree turn with a railway, but if you have them like this and you have a 3x3, as in 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and you make two 45s instead, if you aim at the corners of that one instead, you still get the same level of 90-degree bend, but now with functions. Tip number 41. When you are making junctions, you always place path signals going into the junction. If you have a right-hand traffic, this is the inside, and going into the junction here, and into the junction here, and on the going out, you place a block signal, which means that on these ends, you have block signals, block signals, block signals, and then, yeah, like I said, path signals in, and you will be fine. Tip number 42, use the priority power switch to manage large, like energy networks. When you are opening this, you have a circuit break priority grid here, where you can switch around what turns off. So if you run out of power, these will turn off, and then next group, and then next group, and then next group, up until the first priority, which is the most important stuff that always have to run. So that's something to keep in mind. When you are creating large power networks, make sure to unlock the priority power switch in the Caterium network of the MAM. Tip number 44. The Blueprint Designer is probably the most powerful building tool in the game if you master it. That means that you need to practice and test your limits and see what you can do with it. You should try making one-click factories, as in one click and you have a full production line for whatever part you wanted to make. 2, where you have like build sections for logistics, as in ready-made manifolds for, or like templates for machine sections and stuff like that. And then ultimately modular factory parts that you can place out that has like certain parts being made or certain logistics being pre-prepared to help you solve problems. You can make road sections, you can make train rail lines, you can make anything in this. Your imagination is the limit, but you need to make sure you practice. Tip number 45. You can fix this set fighting by using a blueprint where you have raised it just a little bit, so that if it hits, like you can see here, I've made a video on this, you can check it out. But by raising the foundation just slightly, it means that anything that I place that is the same kind here, even if I place them on top of each other, so they are like clipping through properly, they cannot, let me fix here, they cannot actually cause any Z fighting because this foundation is slightly higher. So that's one tip. Another one is that you can literally just try and like switch out the material you're using with the customizer. Sometimes that also fixes the problem. If it doesn't help, you're gonna need to use a blueprint where you have one foundation placed like a couple of millimeters higher than everything else. Tip number 46, packaging liquids for transport removes all need for considering liquid or fluid dynamics, which makes it a lot easier to move them around. Just package them just after they're produced and unpackage them just before you send them into another machine for whatever production line you are making. And you will have a lot easier with all of that. It is often worth the hassle of setting up a container production line It's literally just to fix this, so you don't have to deal with fluid dynamics, especially for long distance transportation. Send them into trains. You don't also need to look for head lift when sending things up or down. So it's really, really good to just consider, do I put in some packagers and some containers, and can I recycle those containers so I don't have to constantly produce them? Tip number 47, if you don't like the color scheme, you can easily go in and edit the default color scheme for the entire game, and it will change all machines and everything that is using that, which is by default most of it. So by changing these, you can change out your base colors that are being used in the game. Good luck, and I hope you make everything look pretty. Tip number 48, changing the UI hologram colors is easy to do, especially if you're having trouble with color blindness or similar. You get into options here and then to user interface, and you can change all of your hologram colors. And my tip is, if you're having trouble seeing the in and output, then try to make your holograms white or gray. There we go. So if I now go out and I apply this, you can see now it's very easy for me to see the in and output directions of this compared to the base blue. So yeah, try that out and find what works best for you. Tip number 49, if you want to center foundations on the miner's output, what you can do is aim at it with the road barrier from the front so that it snaps to the middle, place it down, then take out your catwalks and place one on each side on the bottom, like so, and then remove road barrier, and then snap your foundation in the middle, and suddenly you have the centered foundation for your miner, which is going to make it look a lot prettier when you're running your conveyors out of it. And tip number 50, when building factories, instead of having messy logistics and everything up here where you have all your machines, have separate floors that are dedicated to logistics underneath, so you have logistics floors, and if you want to, and you're running things vertically, have whole logistics walls as well. That way, for example, in this is a logistics tube that I have running all the resources in. That way, you have all of the resources being, or conveyors, power lines, all of that, it's being hidden away, so it makes your factories look a lot cleaner when you're walking through them, and you can make very, very nice looking aesthetics using the conveyors and everything themselves, like I have here. As a final 51st tip, it's an extra for you guys. Here's what I can recommend so that you don't end up burning yourself out and end up abandoning worlds, starting new ones all the time, where you can actually get all the way to finishing the game. Don't optimize the fun out of the game. Make sure that you play in a way that you enjoy. Don't look at me or Total Eclipse or Bits or I'm Kibitz and think like, okay, I have to build the way they do. Don't try to go for the 100% efficient builds if you feel like that's boring or that's turning you off from continuing a build. Don't repeat the same solutions over and over again. Experiment and make mistakes. Have fun. Play with friends. Spending 30 hours making sure that every single machine in your world is 100% efficient will 100% burn you out. I know this because it has happened to me. I know it because it has happened to people I've played with, and you will ultimately have a lot more fun if you don't try to optimize and instead just find what works for you and makes you go, yeah, I want to show this, I want to make more of this, and ultimately, that is what the game is about. Having fun and enjoying yourself. If you don't enjoy the game and everything just has to be perfect, why are you even playing? Honestly, if that's where you are, I think you should maybe take a break from Satisfactory, come back later, and try your hand at it again. Find something that you're actually happy to play and happy and enjoy making something out of. This is a creative game, and creative energy is finite. You need to recharge it, and you might you need to let yourself do that. With that said, this tips and tricks video is now over. I'm super happy if you stayed all the way here. You are a legend, and I would love it if you were to subscribe and like all those things for the video. And I will see you guys in the next one. And if I don't see you then, I hope to see you on the 10th of September for the 1.0 stream. And if nothing else, have a really good one. Bye!